Thank you so much for joining. I'm Natalie, and I'm really excited for you all to be here for our virtual paint night all about acrylics. We did watercolors the other day, and acrylics is something that I'm super excited to dive into. A few of us were chatting before we kicked this off, and it sounds like a few of us have dabbled in acrylics, through the pandemic and through some loss and, just mindset processing in my life. It's been tremendous. And so I'm, really excited to both be here and to learn a little bit more from Corey. And just want to mention, if you don't have all the materials, that's fine. I know we had an extensive list. Just showing up and just saying, wow, I'm going to try something new, or I'm going to get outside of my comfort zone. I'd never done watercolors. Earlier this week, I was like, not even scared to try it. And it was incredible, just kind of this concept of a growth mindset and just trying new things. So really excited to have you all, really excited you're here. Just try something new. Don't care, what it looks like on paper. In terms of background and what we're going to do, Corey, who's leading us, she does a great job of, instructing and guiding. She leads classes outside of She's Independent. She will give a little bit of background on art history, some examples, techniques. Throughout, she can offer some guidance as well when she looks at your picture if you want to show it to her. But thanks so much for being here. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Corey, but I'm going to hang out and paint with you all. If you have questions, feedback, anything at all, you can message me, email me, and I will share Corey's details out of this. So with that, Corey, the floor is yours.
Feel free to share things, and I will ask you at certain points, like, hey, do you want to hold something up? I can tell you what the next steps are going to be. It's all positive words here. And I know the inclination will be, you're going to hold up something and you're going to say, oh, I know this is terrible. Please don't do that. Like, we're just going to do positive words and what are the next steps. So I'm going to walk you through from kind of, the beginning. And we're going to look at what materials we have, what brushes. I have a webcam here. So we will, you'll look at little demos that I can do. And I have a screen share. Can everybody see that? And hear me and everything's good? Or
I don't see your screen share at the moment. I think you might
turn it off. So I'm going to turn it back on. Got it.
Okay.
Good. How about that?
All good.
Okay. So I found this online, this Welcome to Colorful Colorado, just like, luckily. I've been to Colorado, so I know what it's like. It's real lovely. And Natalie supplied the photos for these classes because I said, hey, you're the one who I've been seeing your amazing photos. Please send me some. So I looked through a bunch and we kind of came up with some together that we thought would work. These are Natalie's, and Beth, you're in Colorado too, right? Okay, great, perfect. And this would be a fun one to do. Natalie could share it with you, or you guys can get your own, but this pine cone has some really fun stuff going on. And you'll know why after the class, because I have a little list. So I would appreciate if you guys want to take a picture of this with your phones. These are, or write it down, but these are the things that we are going to be focused on in this class. So when you start, yeah, and Natalie's going to hand this out later as well. But when we think about any topic, we want to think about first form, what shapes are we making, what values, and then color is almost a secondary thought. So it seems strange, but we did this the other night, and Natalie, I bet you like this when you thought about later. We do thumbnail sketches of values. So everybody should definitely have pencil and paper and your painting materials. So we need to think about, like, how can my eye move around the whole canvas and why would it do that? You want to capture your viewers' attention and keep them there. They don't want to like wander off to the next picture. Your job is to keep somebody engaged. And how do you do that? Definitely want like an interesting focus area. One thing I've learned that's really helpful is irregular shapes all over the place, because that's basically how nature is. And even if what you're looking at looks a little structured or whatever, you want to kind of break it up a little. Then colors, I'm going to walk you through all of that. We'll mix colors together and everything, but those are kind of some basics. Any questions about that little page? And okay, it all makes sense. So I wanted to do a little bit of like historical review for, picking a woman artist who's like a phenomenal oil painter from the West. And okay, Georgia O'Keeffe. And I happened to see this painting recently and I was like, oh, this is perfect for this class. And okay, so guess what? This river, when she was looking at it, was probably basically brown, right? Have you seen a river? It's like bright blue. So no, I mean, we know what these rivers look like. They're like swirly brown, grayish, green, brown out west. But she's creating a very, peaceful but yet dramatic environment here with the colors and the shapes and the contrast that she's making. So she's got like a lot of interesting things, like these little bumpy blue, green, almost blob shrubs. There's a lot of contrast going on in there that brings your eye over there. And then you swirl down to this river. But your eye is kind of pulled off the canvas because of the river, right? But there's so much drama in the contrast that you're pulled back. It darks, lights, darks, lights, darks, lights. Everybody see how that's engaging? And the weird thing is, she pulls off, and not weird, but it's very challenging to have red in the background. So red is a very eye-catching color. It's like we can't look away from it. And usually you want to present warmer colors, like a deep, intense color like that in the front, like closer to the viewer, and blues and greens and cooler colors fading out. But she pulls it off. And she's also got a lot of interesting, unusual things where this is a softer look. And typically you would put softer elements fading out, like aerial perspective in the back. But she's got some here, very dramatic close up on the right side. So kind of look at these things as like, what can you see for contrast? I don't have the name of this one or the date, but again, it's Georgia O'Keeffe. It's really powerful. So she was in New Mexico. So we're just going to extrapolate a little. So she's smoothing out whatever was here, maybe it's soil, but she's also like, maybe there were plants, I don't know, but it's almost like a lunar landscape with color. Here's a great one. Again, these are all going to be Georgia O'Keeffe for plants. So look at the ones in the front. A really nice variety of greens and yellows and mid greens and a few little details of branches. But this is a really good one to copy from because she has so many contrasting values in there. Okay, so we're going to think value and then color, and they're going to kind of come together. And the drama of that mountain in the back, so dark. It's like kind of ominous. What do you guys think? Do you like these?
I think this one's beautiful.
I do too.
I like this one a lot, but it was interesting. I had sort of like a visceral negative reaction to the one right before it. So I don't know. Yeah, it's
Interesting. Let's see that again.
yeah. It's don't.
Yeah,
It's not. I mean, it's ugly, but I don't know. I just like
it's not
Heavy.
pretty. But I
Yeah.
lived in New Mexico and it drew me into the land because you zone out. I lived in Santa Fe for a little bit and I would drive between there and Albuquerque and there's nothingness, but it's so gorgeous.
Yeah,
And it's like
Mhm.
she just captured the land, like nails it, I feel like.
that's true. That's true. Yeah.
The aridness, yeah, my dad lived in Tucson and it's like, ugh, it's very intense, very harsh. Yeah, it is a good point. It's a good point. It's not a welcoming painting. This one has a lot more friendliness to it. So I think one thing to think about when we get to our project and we can learn from here, think about colors that you're going to extract that you may not see right away and that you may invent just because you're the artist and no one's going to see the photo later of this thing that we're going to do, right? Unless you show it to them. So she dropped in things for her needs to make things interesting, like this lavender color in here. That really adds a lot. You know, it mixes beautifully with that sort of peachy tan there in the middle. Anyway, yeah, she keeps your eye moving around, right? Here's a softer brushstroke. So yeah, think about what kind of brushstroke if you're already doing a lot of painting. You know, Natalie's got a lot of projects that she's done with her dog. Think about what kind of brushstroke you're comfortable with, and we'll get to painting in a minute. But here, okay, this is a great example. When in the preliminary slide, I said, find a focus and find a place where it's like interesting. Well, it's pretty freaking, you know, obvious here where that is. And everything else is soft around it. But you may not know, think of that at first. This is very strategic. Look at this little shrub. And then everything else, it's interesting, but it's very strategic what she did there to have that little strap. Oh, and then I threw this in because don't worry about like keeping with color that you're seeing. Okay, what you're seeing in the next, you know, when we start painting is what they call local color. And I talked about this the other day in watercolor. If you want to go crazy and do like have fun with color tonight, go for it. So don't think like, okay, there's a brown mountain. So I'm going to kind of go with local color that I see in the photo. But if you want to do something like purple mountain with a red rock and a, you know, just totally change it if you want. So have fun with the color if you want. This is quite quite something. Okay, so this is our photo that we're going to work from.
And real quick, as a reminder, you can pull up, I sent this photo. It's linked to the Paint Night Logistics, the webpage I circulated. So I can also drop that in the chat if you have any questions, but Corey will probably start sharing some other things. And so you want to make sure you have the photo available. So I will send that link one more time.
Yeah, so with Zoom and everything, I could stop the share if you guys have the photo, and then you can get a bigger picture of what I'm doing. But it's up to you, because I teach all the time on Zoom, and some people have the photos, some people don't. And so we can work either way.
I just dropped that. So if they want, they can pull it up separately.
Okay, cool. Okay, so we'll talk about materials a bit. We did send out that supply list, and if you don't have all this stuff, fine. If you have one brush, perfect. I will just walk through, and all of these things you will, you know, be able to consider later if you fall in love with acrylic painting, or, you know, Julia's already painting, so she's like ready to go. But these are my not so clean, well-used acrylic brushes from my student days when I didn't take good, you know, it's kind of an example of like what not to do. But I do encourage you to clean your brushes really well after class. They'll last a lot longer. You can get like a soap. There's, you can use regular soap, but there's artist soaps. So definitely clean your brushes and keep them in good shape. So I tend to use, this is a very large flat brush that I will use with you a little bit tonight. When I'm picking up a brush, it tends to be a flat brush. These are flat brushes, the rectangular shape. The rounds are this shape, which is sort of like what you think of as a painter's brush. And so whatever you have on hand is totally fine. So we'll start out with, so I want you guys to have the basic primary colors. This is a thing that I painted up, a color chart, quite a while ago, just to see how many colors I could make. And it's kind of handy to have something like this down the road if you get into painting. But for example, okay, I have ultramarine blue, and maybe this is a Hansa yellow. What are all the greens that I could make in there? So tonight, I was just thinking, if you only have the primary colors, that's totally fine. This is yellow ochre, kind of a mess that I put out. I do recommend having a palette knife for mixing. So if some of you have had acrylic experience, so you probably know that it's a plastic base paint, which is a bit, it's a new technology in a way in terms of the history of painting. And it's trying to emulate oil painting as much as possible, but our water is our mixing. We don't use anything else. We mix it with water, so it makes it easy. So when you're working with mixing paints, I recommend, this is quite a bit. So if everybody has a palette page or a palette, you can get that out. And you definitely are going to want, so I'm right-handed, but I want to have the craft. I talked about this on the other day with watercolor. You want to have kind of your tools set up. This got a little bit dried on, so that it's like there for you when you want to do something. Okay, so my right hand, I only mix with my palette knife, and then I have my paper towel basically living in my non-dominant hand. So you're constantly using that for one reason or another. Okay, so you want to have some paper towels. You want to have your kind of bucket of water. Everybody got all this handy? Okay, perfect. And I was saying to Natalie, it's handy to have a spray bottle for wetting the paint again, because acrylic does dry while you're working. Or you can have this retarder gel. Put little dabs of this in the paint. This is a really nice thing to have to extend the drying time. And it kind of makes the paint a little fluffier, if you like that. This is a great thing to have. So what I want to do is I already have the yellow ochre. Put out little bits of each color. So this is alizarin crimson. And we want some yellow. So as far as like how I set up my palette, I like to have, maybe I'm going to put the warm colors kind of close together. This is the Hansa yellow. And like I said in that little slide, if you use white paint, it definitely cools the whole painting, which is fine. But you're going to want to put out probably more of the white paint. So it all depends, of course, how much time do you have for painting and how big is your canvas. So we'll also put out some blue. I've got some ultramarine blue here. Do you guys have other colors that you want to add in? I don't recommend black. So I do think when you're starting out in acrylic, it's really smart to avoid black for a while because it really takes over. It really makes things much more intense. So I'm working with like kind of student, well, it says artist. These are kind of old. I've had these for a while. Acrylic paints, you know, there's student versions. If you get really into acrylic, you want to get golden paints, and those are just a better, like smoother quality, heavier. All right, so how are we doing with laying out our colors? It's okay to put out greens. It's totally fine. So you guys have the photo, and does everyone have it downloaded? Should I stop the share? Or should I keep the share going?
I think we should be good. I circulated that link.
Everybody got it? Okay. Okay, so we'll try the speaker view here. Everybody can see the palette? Okay, great. So I've got my ultramarine blue, red, alizarin red, and the Hansa yellow. So what I like to do is keep these colors pretty separate. So I can always go back and I have my primary colors that aren't all, you know, messed up and changed. So I look at my subject and we've got this really cool rock mountain. So Natalie, do you want to tell us a little bit about the photo?
Oh, sure. I mentioned in the chat, but this was just on a
Oh,
hike.
thanks.
Yeah, through Chautauqua. The Flatirons are gorgeous. And I think it was that kind of main loop trail where, you know, you're looking up and it's just breathtaking from every angle.
Wow. It's so pretty. I really like this one for those like craggy angles that are coming up.
Yeah. No, it's incredible. And it's like anywhere you go in Boulder and you do a hike, if you see the Flatirons, it's so cool from like different angles, directions. I forget what that mountain is in Japan, you know, but people will paint it from all different angles. And I feel like the
Oh,
Flatirons,
Fiji, yeah.
yeah, it's
Not
this like
Fiji. Oh,
very cool thing.
nice. So what we've got in there, oh, so there's some trees kind of going through the middle. Okay, that's really interesting. Those dark pines. Okay. So start to look at this and think, how would you want to represent it? So even though I just said don't use black, if you have black, I actually want to change my mind a little bit. Do you have black, everybody? So what I want to do is put a little black, and that goes a really long way. So we're going to start with taking some white, and you're going to want a little bit of white kind of all over your palette. And my palette is on this disposable pad thing. So there's sheets, and I will have to kind of rotate this around to try and show more of it. But so every time I take a little bit of the pure paint, I'm going to clean my palette, clean my palette knife, and then I'm going to take a drop of that black paint. And I just want to do this as kind of a, I don't know, it's like a meditative way to start. So I mix these paints, and I want to make this time, instead of us starting on like a plain white canvas, we're going to start with ground color, and that's just going to be like a simple gray. So I want you to mix up mostly white, and it's going to look a little silvery. Add some black, and see how the craft, I'm trying to show very quickly, don't mix all these colors if you can. Pick up and drop, and then clean your palette knife with this in your non-dominant hand towel, which quickly becomes I mean, I'm using paper towels, but I like to use rags actually, or old clothes. So it's sort of a recycling thing. Okay, so when I've got that gray, I'm going to take my flat brush and maybe kind of get it a little bit wet and add some water to this because we're making something that will be, so I'm getting water in here. It's going to be a little bit more juicy with the water. And I try to keep the paint from getting into the metal. And that's, just something that is a good habit to have. So now I'm taking my taped down canvas. Now, I don't know if you guys have, you know, boards, canvas on board. This is a canvas pad paper that I've taped onto a backing. So this is a way, this thing about like, oh, the blank white canvas. What do I do? Well, you can do a ground like this in any number of colors. I did one earlier for the class, but it was too intense. I'll show you guys. This is yellow ochre. And I'm like, nah, no, that's not going to work for this. So I'm going to go for this more neutral gray. And if you've added water to it, just, doesn't matter how, actually, it's actually kind of fun when it's not even. So you can take and add more water and just splash around this gray or whatever you've come up with. Not too much water, but it doesn't have to be even. And in fact, when it's not even, you get something interesting to play with when you start painting. So I've already run out of my gray. And so I'm going to mix up a little bit more.
Corey, one thing that I found really interesting, it's kind of funny, but I did one of those, what's his name? The painter, Bob Ross. It's been a long week.
Okay.
And,
I've never done that. What is it like?
and it's so interesting. He and another painter, they were big on this, but they create this, they call it magic white. And basically granted it's oil, but it's white mixed with this kind of linseed or something that allows you to kind of blend and do things on the canvas. Is the idea
Yeah.
of getting the canvas a little wet, or it's going to dry because this is acrylic?
Wait, what was the question?
So the question is, by making this background, is it prepping the canvas with a little moisture as well, or it's all going to dry because it's acrylic?
Oh, it's going to dry.
Yeah, okay.
Like,
Because with
really
Bob Ross, it's like now blend because you have this base.
Oh, yeah. Well, oil is a totally different world.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's also like much more expensive.
Right. It was an investment.
I know. And so what's cool about that though, Natalie, is once you've done, like if you have some oil paints around, you can just, you can always like start with acrylic, and a lot of artists, well, some artists do this if they want to save money. You start with acrylic and you can put oil on top of that to get
Cool.
like a nice shiny,
Yeah, I love that.
rich, but you can't do it the other way around. You can't start with oil and put acrylic on top. So if you want to do like save money and put down acrylic, that's fine. But
Yeah,
you
because I
can't
have something that I did in oil, and there's a piece that I wanted to use acrylic for, and I just didn't know.
Yeah, no, that's a good trick to have. I'm glad you mentioned about the oil.
How do we keep it?
So one thing that's
Oh,
cool,
sorry, Beth. What was that?
Oh, I was just gonna add more to this like background work conversation.
yeah,
Interrupt.
go ahead.
Now that I follow an artist on Instagram, and somebody like she was showing her process,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of like sort of landscape pictures as well, and she starts with a red background, and so people asked her like, why do you paint this red background first? And Corey, she said something similar where it's like, I just have to like get color on the page to like break. It's almost like breaking the seal, right? Like we gotta like start somewhere and then it's like
Right.
after that, I don't know.
No, I love that.
Yeah, so I mean, you can do a lot with letting, like, choose it, like it doesn't have to be random, like I'm sort of doing this gray. Red is an intense choice because you know, then you're gonna have that to deal with. But this is a simpler, more relaxed, you know, neutral. But yeah, you can, if you choose, if you look at what you're painting very carefully and make some choices, you can decide, oh yeah, I want that red to come through in different places,
Mhm.
right? So a lot of artists do that. And when you start looking carefully at works, you're going to see how they've used underpainting, and it unifies the painting throughout. Like if, you know, you're doing the red, Beth, like you said, like that is a way to have that red appear here and there. Did you find that in the class or was Instagram?
Yeah, it's just an artist I follow.
Yeah. But I think that's a very good way to start. Another thing is like these canvases, they're pre-treated with gesso, but they're like a really thin gesso. So gesso is your kind of, you know, you have your raw canvas and then you put this sort of paint-like stuff on it. It's basically an acrylic. Um, so that lets you paint on top of it, and it's treating the canvas, it's building up some paint layer, but it's really not that much. And you know, when you start painting, you want to think like, how thick can I make my paint so that it's not showing some of the like white marks of this pre-treated gesso, right? Because I don't know if you've noticed this, but like unless you're painting kind of with a thick, good amount of paint, you're gonna see little bits of white coming through. So this kind of helps with that issue as well. Okay, now we have this mysterious gray fog. So there's different ways, like, as you all know, how to get started. So I don't know if you guys have your favorite ways to start, but I've now forced you probably to skip the drawing and move into painting on this, right? We're not going to probably take pencil over this. And I really like that approach. You have your canvas. We're going to let this dry. We'll put it to the side and we'll go to, speaking of drawing, we're going to do a quick value sketch. So you can take paper, any sort of sketch paper. And this is a technique I really love for mapping out what we have, and thinking about the values. So hopefully you can kind of put that to the side and grab a pencil. So these are basically little thumbnail. So this is pretty much horizontal, but I want to kind of make it a little more of a square shape. Well, actually, no. We'll go with the rectangle. So one fun thing, if you're taping these canvas pages, if you have these, a canvas pad, you can always like put more, once this is dry, you can like change the shape and put tape across here. like, oh, I want to change the shape of my painting. Just put tape on it and you've marked out a different shape. So with a thumbnail, Natalie did this with me the other day. We're going to look at, and these are very like, you know, very horizontal kind of paintings. So you get to decide what we're putting where, but we've got a cloud up here on the upper left. And you don't even have to put in all these clouds. It's totally up to you. You can leave out the pine tree or leave it in, but it's kind of a cool thing up on the upper left. And then we've got this dramatic range and coming off here. So just give a little bit of a sketch for yourself. This is just going to be a reference for you throughout the painting. And I recommend, like I said in that little slide in the beginning, think about where's the center and don't put your focus in the center. Try to make it off to the side. So I made this little diagonal grid thing to show, okay, here's my center. Your eye, the painting is a little bit, okay, our natural inclination is to put stuff in the center. There's a whole book about it, if you want to get into this, called The Power of the Center. But we are inclined to say, anytime we see something like, oh, there it is, drop it in right in the middle. No, your eye, it sort of deadens the whole experience. You want something to be happening off to the side. So try that in anything you're doing, whether you're taking a photo, any painting, try that out and see how that goes. And maybe we have a little pine tree over here. So what I'm doing is getting in these basic, can everybody see? Basic things. Maybe this is a little bit shorter. So all of these distances I want to be kind of different from each other. Okay, so I've got this zone of the shrubs is a little bit narrower. This is wider. And then the mountain is pretty jaggedy, right? And then I've got a sky that I've shortened. So everyone can choose how they want to lay it out, but this is your chance to make your decisions. Then the fun part is we've got these trees, let's see. So I've got the shrub zone and all these trees in here. And now a little trick that all artists need is squinting. So you can kind of squint at this and say, all right, here I've got this really dark zone of trees kind of in the middle of these craggy stones. And there's another bit there. And then I know these trees are also super dark relative to a lot of things. Dark trees coming up. And then at the base of the tree zone, it's even darker. So you can see already I'm looking at how can I create a variety of values. I've got these nice shrubs that are kind of fun. Georgia O'Keeffe would have fun with those. And we're gonna have fun too. And then a nice sweet middle light. Well, look at the light. The lightest part is our little field here of these little grasses. And here we may have more texture. So light, and you're the one who is going to make this happen. You want light against, this is kind of a middle value. Then we have dark, a little bit lighter than that, but still dark. And then we have our beautiful mountain on the darker side, but not as dark. And then the sky is totally up to you. This is a photo that, you know, as we talked about with the watercolor, you have to make things relate to what's happening in your landscape. So maybe you want this part of the sky to be lighter. So we have this nice white cloud, let's say, another white cloud. Let's say there's another one. And then, so this is your lightest, these are your lightest shapes. And then maybe the blue is in between. So now you have a map and you have like a logic for what you're going to do in the painting. And you can do this when you're sitting outside, right? You create your frame, you decide what you're painting, and then you go from there. How's that going? Everybody get a little thumbnail? Okay, I can see Natalie. The way this is set up, I can only see Natalie. Okay, now I can flick through. Julia looks good. Everybody's happy. All right, any questions or thoughts?
Oh, I was just going to mention quickly, since I saw another Kristen joined. Kristen, I'm going to redrop the link for the images in the chat in case you want to check it out, since we're no longer screen sharing the image.
Yeah, and actually, if I screen share and she wants to take a picture, that's also easy, whatever works.
Feel free to keep going. Just wanted to mention.
Yeah, great. Hi, Kristen. Welcome. Okay, so we keep our thumbnail to the side, and that's your little reference as you go along, because when you get into color, you'll just be like, oh, wait, what was I doing? What was that all about? So keep that to the side. Even if you're looking at the landscape or whatever it is you're painting, that is kind of your guide. And if we think back to George O'Keeffe, we can actually, Kristen, maybe we'll spend 2 seconds going back with those. Since you just got here.
But Corey, I'll also make sure she gets the recording too. So no worries if you want to.
Yeah, definitely. But just to reiterate, if you've done your thumbnail, this landscape, you can see she probably did these thumbnails too. Look how she's creating contrast. This field is lighter than the mountain. We have a lot of little variety of values scattered in those little tumbleweed things. And this one, of course, is kind of hilarious. Okay, so how are you guys doing? Did everything dry for you on this ground? Mine's almost dry, it's good enough. Okay, so even using your simplified sketch that you did, your thumbnail, is a good way to kind of get rolling. So like I said, since you already have this kind of paint laid out, you can go right into working with your paint. You don't even have to draw on this. We can sketch in with our paint brushes, like just start painting right away. We're done with the pencil. So we've got this, it's pretty dry for me, I hope for you guys as well. We can start mixing some nice colors. And now this is where you can take off and do like hot pink. Anything goes. Right? So I'm gonna go for like more of a, typical look, I guess. And what I like to do is have at least, let's say if I'm doing a landscape like this, I want to have get rolling with some let's say three values of green. So just have fun with that and make up three greens, a dark, a medium, and a light. So here I've got my pretty dark, deep green. And like I said, I try to clean my palette knife every time I pick up paint and then move to the next one, so I'm not making the other ones into the one from the tube into a little bit of a mess. So maybe we'll copy Georgia's idea and have a little focal point. Oops, sorry. And you can pick your focal point. How she made that one shrub like with more definition. So you don't have to use white paint. It's definitely a paint that cools down your entire painting. It's fine to use it, but you don't have to. But I'm going to. So I'm reading quite a bit of like purple. I don't know what you guys are seeing in is it the Iron Mountain? I'm seeing a lot of purple. Like at first glance, you think, oh, it's sort of brown. But we could sort of take a cue from Georgia and say, all right, I'm seeing other things going on there. Purple, some tans. So as far as like getting outside and painting, people do a lot in oil in plein air. So it's interesting because like, I don't know, Natalie, if you've painted outside with acrylics, but it in some ways I feel like it's easier to work with watercolor or oil outside, because watercolor you're constantly moving the water around like you saw the other night, and oil doesn't dry very quickly. But acrylic, you want to either like spray it or like this, the couple of drops to keep it moist like that really makes a difference, because once it starts to dry, it gets really plasticky and kind of chunky. I think that's the whole thing of oil out in the plein air. It's so much fun because it doesn't dry. Like, you're free to. So I've got some greens here, and can also work with a little blue. Get some sky going.
And Corey, to the point of acrylics drying, it's interesting that we're mixing so much before we use it, right?
Well, this is my method. So,
Yeah.
this is how I like to do it. I like to see, well, first of all, if you're doing this kind of, bunch of different colors, you have to have a spray bottle or sprinkle water, like I said, to
Yeah.
keep it moist, or use the this stuff, the gel. It's really great. I'm not going to use it now because we're kind of doing this kind of as a quick painting. But you basically want to put a little blob of that in each color, and then it'll stay kind of fluffy and moist for much longer. But for tonight, we'll just kind of, get started with this. I do love to have, the way I was trained was to have, a bunch of different colors out. And I was sort of taught in an impressionist way of moving around the canvas with all the colors, little bits here and there, so that they're kind of working together. So I'm actually going to mix up. I know this seems like kind of slow, like why are we mixing so long? But if you get into the flow of it, it's kind of fun. So I'm going to try I'm thinking of the rock area. So I'm going to kind of think of them as a purpley, brown. And the way to get that, I've got this alizarin red, and I'm going to throw in a little bit of this yellow ochre. And that kind of dulls it a lot, which is good. And then maybe a little bit of blue. Okay, so once I have a few of these like warm and cool colors kind of on my palette, I feel like, all right, I'm ready to start. And hopefully you guys have had time to work some colors together. And I like it when the colors are not completely mixed sometimes. So I'm just gonna leave that like that on the palette. And that's where it's more fun. So I'm gonna just put my palette to the side, but you guys can see my canvas, right? So how do you guys want to approach this? Anyone? Because you guys have been painting for a while. Any thoughts?
I am super interested in like the approach to like where do we start? And
Yes, I know the feeling. We're all wondering, Beth, we're all wondering that right now. No, I'm
The
kidding.
mountains.
What?
The mountains.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know. It's on my brush.
Right. So go for it. Yeah, so where do you start? So there's a very nice, moment, I feel like, in the in this area where it's like kind of a cool dark zone, right? That has this like contrast in the light. But anyway, so there's different ways to start. So let's start with a simple blocking in. So that's where I'm just taking like a yellow ochre here, and that's going to kind of disappear over time. But you can take any other sort of, something that's contrasting with your background paint that you put down, your ground. But this is just one way to start, Beth, okay? So there's lots of different ways to go. But let's say I'm looking at my sketch and I've got my field area here, the rock, the sort of pine zone up there. And so the beauty of acrylics is we can layer the heck out of this and nobody will see this later. And that's not really the case with watercolor. So I've got my field in here. I've got my shrubby zone here. Let's see, and then the pines through there coming up, and then my rock in there. Very rough. And then the clouds have become kind of less consequential. So this is one way to get started. And then if you like that underpainting stuff, you can leave some of it, right? Is that helpful, Beth? I know it's a bunch of squiggly lines. So I'm going by my value study and looking at these sort of different zones. And once I have these in, instead of working around graphite and fighting with the pencil, like I put pencil on top of paint, just skip all that. Just start painting right away. And that I think it's kind of liberating. So one thing you can do is from here, put in some of your darkest darks so that you're going to create some value. So I'm taking my deepest green and dabbing it in, darkest green, and I'm saying, okay, I'm going to just go for these as my darkest areas and get those in right away. So this is that part of the mountain here. And then we've got this whole little forest, right? And then at the lower part of that little forest, we've also got some dark. This is a really fun photo, Natalie. Fun scene. I really like it. Good job. Okay, so one of the fun things with acrylic, it's that it does dry fast. So you can move in other colors quickly and they're not going to blend in, which can be a good thing. Okay, so I've got a few things laid out. And now definitely clean my brush from that dark green with the water. And I do like to change my water. Once you get into the color, you don't want your water to kind of murky. So just starting with these sort of dark areas, then I can say, well, where are some of those lighter greens? And have fun with that. And then there's this really pretty bright green that I'm gonna kind of exaggerate here and there in this sort of shrub zone. And then if you put some of that light green at the tops of trees, you get more depth. Okay, so I've laid out 3 greens, at least preliminarily, and then I know that I want to move into, I know Natalie's chomping at the bit for the mountain. But anyway, you want to try to have all these different different colors kind of working together throughout. So this green is going to talk a little bit, have a little dialogue with my mountain, right? They're going to talk to each other because they're next to each other. And your brushstroke can do a lot for what is happening on this mountain. It's fine to, and I've got water blurping in there. It's fine to do the brushstroke in the direction, especially rocks. I've become really interested in painting rocks recently. I'm gonna do this big quarry project. I don't know, Natalie, did you ever get out to the quarry here?
I've not, no.
Yeah, it's like this hidden gem. I finally found it. It's like Scioto Church Road. It's weird.
Cool.
It's like hidden in plain sight.
Yeah.
So when you find places that you love, just, go for it. And topics that you love. So anyway, so try to paint in the direction of the rock and see it gets a little more indicative of the shape and maybe hopefully looks like a little mountain. And they're jagged and a little bit rough, obviously. So then once I've got a little bit of that story going, I'm going to take some of that deep green and mix it in with that rock color. And that's going to be the darker side of the hills. And sorry, my dog came in, he's kind of snuffling around. Maybe some of the detail. Okay, so then we have some really fun things going on with our shrubs. And that's, okay, so did anyone pick like a focus area? Because I didn't. All that talk about a focus area. So maybe something down here would be kind of cool, like a little more detail. So when I think when I'm painting, I do take breaks and remix color, like start over and get some new colors getting going, because I realize like, oh, I need a dark gray. So I pause and I go back to my palette knife and I just mix up more colors. So see if you can make an exaggerated. So I'm just going with a brushstroke that occurred to me. See if you can make an exaggerated contrast here and there. But see, look what I just did. I did the power of the center. I put my interesting thing right in the middle. So this is something you have to constantly look out for. So I will try to break that up. And bring some white throughout here and get some contrast. So maybe you're doing a totally different style, like a smooth, like wonderful version of George O'Keeffe. She just had like, oh, let's just do a smooth, soft, flow, right? Kind of going a different direction. Okay, so I've kind of moved around a lot here, but then I've ignored the sky. And my paint is getting kind of murky, so I'm gonna wanna, maybe the sky, I'll just try to do that George O'Keeffe thing. So luckily I have my clouds marked out. again, thinking like, how can I have contrast? And maybe get the sky a little more interesting than the photo, because photos really just flatten out. So this would be a good time if you guys want some feedback on anything. Any volunteers? All right, Natalie.
It's hard to see kind of, right?
Oh, there you go.
Oh, yours looks so good.
Ah!
Yeah. Wait, if you hold it up again and say something, we can.
Okay. So if you take a look, I've been working on it, kind of making up some style, and I'm a little more focused than you, but I'm really enjoying your techniques. But I'm gonna keep layering, you know?
Yeah,
Yours look
no,
like mountains.
really
Mountains are
nice.
fun.
Good. I love it. Anybody else?
Mine looks terrible.
Oh no, we're not allowed to say that.
Not
Right?
allowed, Julia. Put it
Nope.
back. I like it. And your mountains are huge. I like that.
I like left no room for this.
Can you hold it up again and say something? Because then it'll show yours.
Oh, there's my interpretation loosely stated.
This is so nice to see. Like you guys, I love this. I love all the different things that people do. Let me see, Beth. Let's see.
So I'm focusing on the two like interesting flat iron.
Oh, so
Nice.
you're nice.
Beautiful.
I started to get too excited about the sky, and now I need to fix them.
Oh no, I love that excitement. I like your like heavy paint, like you're just laying it on. That's
I
great.
love that you focused on those two. That's so cool.
Yeah, no, it's almost like a red rocks painting, not a flat irons painting.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Very cool. Oh, it's so fun. I always love seeing like what people do. Like it's so fun. I just love teaching these classes. All right, so I'm going for my.
Sorry, can I show you mine?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank
Yes.
you.
I don't know if you can see, but I'm trying to do the like not sharp angles
That
design.
looks good.
The colors are awesome.
Really awesome, and it's like got that Georgia O'Keeffe.
Yeah, that's what I'm going for sure.
Awesome. Thanks, Kristen. Did you guys like working with the ground? Having something there?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, good. I like that too. And just, going forward, experiment with that. You can do like pink and then have it kind of come through. It's really fun.
I just love that we didn't sketch first and just kind of went with it because it's more organic,
See? I agree.
Very cool.
I'm so glad we got to try something different for you.
I find it fun to mix my colors on the canvas because then it's not mixed perfectly and you can see the layers of
Yeah,
it.
I agree. Like I did that with the sky and it's like, sure, whatever. And actually that's a great way to get the kind of contrast that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It just kind of happened. So it's like dark light, and your eye wants to kind of move around that.
I also have to say, like, acrylics are pretty incredible because of the layering, where like, if you got tired or you're like, oh, I have to jump on a call or I only have 20 minutes, like it may only be a few strokes, but like you can still get involved, and you don't have to complete it.
Yes, That's very true, unless
Really
you're
nice.
outside and like,
Right.
yes, I agree, Natalie.
Yeah.
No, it's fun. And actually, I always, not generally, I always paint standing up. So, sitting is a bit of a mind killer. And so I'm glad you mentioned that. I don't know, I just went on this train, but I really encourage everyone to try to paint standing up, and your brain is much more activated. And then you can like if you take a break, which is actually really good, you got to get on a call, you go back and look at it later, and you have so much more awareness and like better ideas. So speaking of like mixing on the paint on the canvas and everything, feel free to just use some intense colors like right out of the tube. So I've got some yellows going, and then I'm gonna like get some pretend red things over here so that everything is talking around the canvas. So even if you're doing like the Georgia O'Keeffe thing, you can kind of swirl in some things that brings your eye around the whole painting. Also, putting red next to green, they kind of wake each other up, so to speak. Complementary colors. So a red right next to a green will really brighten up the green. And then if you want it to be more muted, you mix them together and you get kind of a duller brown, duller red. So much fun. Okay, I feel like I kind of went to Colorado a little bit.
Yeah.
This was so fun. Thank you.
Oh, this is great. Thank you, Corey. Wait, can I see your sky again? I wasn't watching when you did the cloud. You said you mixed that on the canvas?
Yeah.
Very cool.
Well, I grabbed, just chunks of different things. So
Yeah.
by the end of a painting, you're going to want to see like a lot of fun colors. Like my teacher used to get us to save our palettes. And, literally you want like just mixing. I don't encourage mixing with your brush because it gets really messy, but I'm doing it right now. But you can like, have little bits of purple and things.
Yeah.
And by the way, this is not good. You do not want your water to get like that, but mine is right now. So anyway, we'll take a cue from Georgia and get some purples.
Ladies, I'm gonna have to go because I have somewhere to get across town. But I wanted to show I've finished my sky and I fixed my rocks. Can I show the final piece?
Yes.
Oh, it looks so good.
Oh, thanks, Beth.
It was
Nice.
Good.
I loved, so Natalie knows this because I emailed her about it earlier, but like I bought all of the supplies for acrylic painting at the beginning of the pandemic. It was like the first thing that crossed my mind as we were going into lockdown, and I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna lose my mind. I can't do any of the things I used to do. And then I almost didn't use them at all because all I did was backgrounds on like 12 canvases. I never actually did anything. And so
now you're ready.
there's something really freeing about the way that you approach this, where I was like, let's just put some paint on here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. This is the magic of the sketch.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm telling you, it simplifies your little world that you're going to work on. And then you're like, oh, it's just darks and lights. And then I'm just filling it in with some paint. It's like, yeah.
Well,
Thank you, Beth. That's really nice to hear.
Natalie, thank you so much for
Oh,
organizing.
yes. It was great to see you. Thanks for
Nice
joining.
to meet you, Beth.
Bye.
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 Well, this was great. I have to tell you, Corey, as much as I've been picking up acrylics at random, I've learned a lot. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah. Well, this is just the beginning. I can do many more things in acrylics if you want. Like, I'd love to. Yeah. And I'm so glad to share this with everyone. And, hearing this story, like, I know how it is, like, when you want to do something and then you get kind of blocked. To
Yeah.
have that open up is really empowering and fun.
Well, I swear I didn't tell Corey to say that, but basically the next session, our last session for Mindset Series, like we're talking about growth mindset, behavioral change. We have a nutritional psychologist, also a holistic practitioner, where we're like talking about ways and strategies to like just basically change your mindset. So awesome.
Great. Yay.
Oh,
This was really fun. Yeah, and I can hang around for a couple of minutes and by the way, if anyone wants to share things to my email, I can give you more feedback, like what you could do next in your painting, next steps, and just think positive talk to yourself, and always say to yourself, what can I do next? That is like one of the best things that one of my painting teachers said, like, what can I do? It sounds so silly, but
no, I
what can
love
do
that.
next? I know, what's next?
Hey,
And-
Julia.
Yeah.
You have to show us your painting again before you leave and say something positive.
I was trying to finish up the bottom field real quick.
Yeah, to say something
But I
positive.
love that. What can I do next? And also like holding back the critique. And even when Beth showed us earlier the picture that she'd made in, was it middle school or high school? I love that she was hanging it.
I know.
It's like, and even for me to now hang this picture of my dog that I made, like it's amazing. And I know the imperfections and I know, I could do these things, but like, it's so cool to celebrate it.
You're wonderful at painting bees.
Yeah, I love that one, Natalie. The colors are great.
Dog. Here, I'll do a
very
quick.
fresh. How old is she now?
So here's the painting
Oh,
and here's the girl.
yeah, I like the way you left that.
Hi, Beans.
Aw, she's just like, Mom, what's next?
On the color
Yeah.
play, I used some blue and it was totally just made up. There's no blue in her fur, obviously. And it was so
Yeah.
much fun.
It's
Oh,
beautiful.
that's so smart. Like, just think like,
It pops.
yes, what color can I throw in there that makes no sense, but it's
Yeah.
actually what painters do. Look at David Hockney, anybody. But I love how you left the neck kind of off.
Yes, it was so much fun. I want to do more of those. I made up this style and it felt so natural. So I think I'll do a series.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do it.
I'll go to your art show of Beans in the bathroom, Beans pooping. Okay, here's mine.
Oh, great, Julia.
That's it.
I love it.
Wonderful.
Purple in the mountains.
Your clouds are awesome.
Yes,
Thank you.
really awesome. Oh my gosh.
That
Let
was
me-
fun.
Can you hold it again? Let me
Yeah.
see. And say something.
This was a lot of fun. I loved painting this. I haven't done a lot of landscapes because I'm not good at shadows, but you did a great job of showing us how to focus on the dark spots and creating those shadows.
This is really wonderful and it's so dramatic. I love the feeling that they're like, dominating. I kind of got like everybody's busy and everybody's has their own place, but you got the mountains like dominant. I love that.
Thank you. I love the mountains. I
Yeah,
love being able to look at them. I need to be close to them.
nice. Yeah, I did a Michigan version where it's like very like, everything kind of blends together, right, Natalie?
I've
Listen,
never been to Michigan.
Michigan's beautiful, and in
Yeah.
particular, where Corey lives, Ann Arbor. It's a very nice spot.
Yeah.
Can't complain, Corey, but
I
yes, you
know,
got the
I'm
balance.
not complaining. Nature is not that far away. I just,
Correct.
I got spoiled out west because I
Yep.
remember how it is. Like I would hike in California. I'm like, oh, I can't believe I got out here in like
Totally.
3 hours. Well, thanks everybody.
Oh, thank you.
It's really fun. Just email me with any more questions. I'd be happy to answer anything about painting. You got my email. It's just corybuckwalter@gmail.com. And I hope we can do this again.
Oh,
This
I
was
would love
fun.
to. I'll check in and see what people want to do, but yeah, I'll send them the info and thank you so much. And thanks everyone for joining. It was
Thank
fun.
you. Yeah, Natalie, we should post some of these paintings that people did.
Yes, I'll ask if people will share. That'd be
on
awesome.
your
Great idea.
Instagram. Okay, awesome.
Julie, you better send me that screenshot.
I will. Thank you.
Thank
Kristen.
you. Thanks, everybody.
Have a good night.
You
Bye.
too. Bye. Nice
you.
to
Bye.
meet you.